For over 30 years, the world has lived under a fragile but vital understanding. Nuclear weapons testing was over. This global moratorium became a symbol of hope and a cornerstone of efforts to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Now, that stability faces its greatest threat in a generation. The US decision to consider resuming nuclear tests risks unraveling decades of arms control and could trigger a dangerous new arms race. The environmental and human health consequences of testing are catastrophic and long-lasting, as radioactive fallout knows no borders. Today, we stand at a crossroads. Will we repeat the mistakes of the past or protect the future from the ever-present nuclear threat? On October 30, 2025, President Donald Trump stunned the world with a late-night announcement that would send shockwaves through the international community and reignite decades-old fears. He ordered preparations to resume US nuclear weapons testing, a move not seen since the Cold War era. The decision marked a dramatic shift in American nuclear policy, breaking with over 30 years of restraint and signaling a new, more confrontational approach. The directive was announced via social media, instantly dominating headlines and trending worldwide. Trump's message cited growing threats from Russia and China, claiming that both nations were advancing their own nuclear capabilities and leaving the United States at a strategic disadvantage. The administration argued that ending the moratorium, in place since 1992, was necessary to protect national security. Officials insist that new tests are essential to ensure the reliability and effectiveness of America's aging nuclear arsenal. They argue that without real-world testing, the US risks falling behind its rivals and losing its technological edge in a rapidly changing global landscape. But critics, including scientists, former officials, and anti-nuclear activists, warn that this move is reckless and unnecessary. They fear it could unravel decades of arms control progress, spark a dangerous new global arms race, and increase the risk of nuclear confrontation. The timing of the announcement, just days before high-stakes talks with China, and as the New START treaty nears expiration, has raised suspicions that the move is a risky negotiating tactic designed to pressure adversaries at the bargaining table. Lawmakers and international experts warn that resuming nuclear tests could provoke immediate tit-for-tat responses from Moscow and Beijing, shattering the fragile foundation of global arms control agreements and escalating tensions to dangerous new heights. Supporters of the decision see it as a bold show of American strength and resolve, arguing that it sends a clear message to adversaries. Opponents, however, call it a dangerous gamble that could backfire and put the world at greater risk. As the nation debates its future, the world is watching closely. The decision has left America deeply divided, with allies and adversaries alike bracing for what comes next. America's move will not go unanswered. The world is watching closely, and the stakes could not be higher. As the United States signals a shift in its nuclear posture, both Russia and China are preparing their own responses, setting the stage for a new era of uncertainty and competition. Russia, having already de-ratified the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, is poised to match any US test, with preparations visible at its Arctic test site. Russian officials have hinted at a willingness to escalate, and military activity in the region has increased. The world's largest country is making it clear it will not be left behind in this dangerous game. China, rapidly expanding its arsenal, could seize the opportunity to refine its warheads and close the technological gap. For Beijing, a US test could be the justification it needs to accelerate its own nuclear modernization and to demonstrate its growing power on the world stage. China's ambitions are no longer hidden. They are front and center. A single US test could trigger a cascade. Russia and China resume testing, and other nations like India, Pakistan, or Iran may follow. The domino effect could be swift, as countries rush to ensure their own security and prestige. the world could see a rapid unraveling of the fragile agreements that have kept nuclear ambitions in check. The United Nations and arms control organizations warn this would undermine decades of non-proliferation efforts. The painstaking work of diplomats and experts could be undone in a matter of months, erasing hard-won progress and making the world a far more dangerous place. The risk is clear: a new, multi-sided nuclear arms race, with more nations and more weapons than ever before. The world could face a level of instability not seen since the height of the Cold War, but with even more players and far greater destructive potential. The fragile balance that kept the world safe could collapse overnight. Once that line is crossed, it may be impossible to restore the trust and restraint that have prevented catastrophe for generations. The stakes are global, and the consequences irreversible. The choices made now will echo for decades, shaping the future of every nation and the fate of humanity itself. Nuclear testing leaves a permanent scar on the environment. Atmospheric tests spread radioactive fallout worldwide, contaminating land, water, and food chains for generations. Even underground tests can vent radioactive gases and poison groundwater, as seen at the Nevada test site, now one of the most contaminated places on Earth. Cleanup is impossible. The damage is forever. Radioactive particles travel the globe, and ocean contamination affects distant shores and marine life. In an era of climate crisis, deliberately adding more radioactive poison to our planet is indefensible. Every test sacrifices the health of future generations for fleeting military advantage. The fallout from nuclear tests is a silent killer. Ionizing radiation causes cancers, birth defects, and genetic damage, often surfacing years after exposure. Downwinders, test site workers, indigenous communities, and even distant populations have suffered and died from these invisible wounds. The US government has paid billions in compensation, tacitly admitting the harm. Resuming tests risks creating a new generation of victims, repeating a history of sickness and loss. No test is truly safe. Every explosion adds to a legacy of human suffering. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT, stands as the world's strongest barrier against nuclear testing, representing decades of international effort to prevent the spread and use of nuclear weapons. It is a landmark agreement that aims to make nuclear explosions a thing of the past, protecting both people and the environment from the devastating effects of nuclear tests. Signed by 187 nations, the CTBT bans all nuclear explosions, whether for military or peaceful purposes, and has created a powerful international taboo against testing. This near-universal support demonstrates a shared global commitment to nuclear restraint and peace. The United States played a leading role in negotiating the CTBT, but despite this, it has never ratified the treaty. Still, the US has honored a voluntary moratorium on nuclear testing for decades, setting an important example for the world. If the US were to resume nuclear testing, it would not only violate the spirit of the treaty, but also shatter American credibility and undermine decades of global arms control efforts. Such a move could destabilize international security and trust. The CTBT's global monitoring system, with hundreds of stations worldwide, ensures that no nuclear test goes undetected. This advanced network builds trust among nations by providing transparency and accountability, making secret tests nearly impossible. If America resumes testing, it would give other countries an excuse to do the same, potentially sparking a new arms race and increasing the risk of nuclear proliferation. The treaty is a vital bulwark against the development of new nuclear weapons and the emergence of new nuclear-armed states, helping to keep the world safer for future generations. Abandoning the CTBT would be a step backward into a more dangerous and uncertain world. erasing hard-won progress and threatening global security for everyone. Nuclear testing began in 1945 with the Trinity explosion and quickly escalated into a global arms race. Over 2,000 tests have been conducted, most by the US and Soviet Union, leaving a legacy of radioactive contamination and fear. The 1963 partial test ban treaty ended atmospheric tests, but underground explosions continued until the Cold War's end. Since the 1990s, only North Korea has defied the global moratorium. This restraint has frozen the development of new weapons and created a powerful taboo. The new US directive threatens to erase 30 years of progress. To return to testing is to risk repeating the darkest chapters of the nuclear age. Experts overwhelmingly agree new nuclear tests are not needed. The US Stockpile Stewardship Program uses advanced science and supercomputers to ensure warhead reliability, no explosions required. Leaders from the National Nuclear Security Administration have repeatedly certified the arsenal's safety. America's deterrent remains formidable, with over 5,000 warheads, enough to deter any adversary. Resuming tests would be political, not technical, and would provoke global instability. Preparing for a test would take years, undermining any claim of urgency. The call for testing is a solution in search of a problem, one that creates new dangers without real benefits. The world stands at a crossroads. Resuming nuclear testing would abandon decades of restraint and cooperation, inviting a new era of fear and arms racing. A US test would almost certainly provoke Russia and China, destroy arms control, and inspire new nuclear states. The human and environmental costs are incalculable: contaminated lands, poisoned communities, and a legacy of suffering. Experts agree testing is unnecessary and would make the world less safe. The choice is clear: step back from the brink, uphold the moratorium, and strengthen the CTBT. The challenge of our time is to eliminate nuclear dangers, not resurrect them. Humanity's future depends on making the right choice before it's too late.